Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for Seek Power Always, that power within you to do your deeper work in the world. I am so honored to have my special guest and dear long-term friend, Elizabeth I knew I was going to mess this up. I'm going to do this part again. Elizabeth Milovidov. Yes?
Milovidov.
Okay, I want to say Hunter every time because this is my childhood friend of her maiden name Hunter. So to say Milovidov is such a brain thing for me. So
yeah, but you nailed it.
My dear friend Elizabeth Milovidov. This is going to be just this is going to be part of the bloopers roll to have on here.
So
Milovidov.
Perfect. That's it.
That's it. Okay,
yes,
wonderful.
Milovidov.
My dear friend Elizabeth Milovidov.
Hello, Diane. It's so lovely to be here.
Love it. Well, I got to tell you about this wonderful woman that, I look back into our past and we were 5 years old. That's how long that we've been friends and playing dodgeball and Catholic school and slumber parties and all of those fun things that we had growing up together, which is such a memory lane that we just recently were able to go back down and look at. And she is now in Paris, France, and just living an amazing life, making great impact. And I just have to brag on her and tell you a little bit about what is up with her, because Elizabeth is a former lawyer, law professor, author, consultant who provides support to governments, companies, schools, and parenting associations on digital parenting. You need to listen in, my parents out there. Digital, parenting is a thing to know. I mean, especially with people being home more and kids on their computer, she is the absolute resource in this. And really, anything having to do with digital parenting and children and internet is Elizabeth's jam. She is currently a board trustee for the Diane Award, an advisor on European cooperation and international projects to e-Enfance, the French Child Online Protection Association, and digital parenting contributor to France 24. She also, that is not enough. This woman is just amazing. She also consults for UNICEF, Child Online Protection, and the Council of Europe as an independent expert on digital parenting and children's rights and internet. She equally provides eSafety content for the UK Safer Internet Center, Internet Matters, and on the Family Online Safety Institute. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. Listen to that introduction.
I'm like, wow. I mean, when you talked about, hey, I'm going to go move to France and have a life in Paris, and, even when you were in college and I came out to visit you and just looking at what this life was going to be for you, did you ever think that this is where you would be, and what got you into not only the drive to live in another country, right, and to do this deep, great work that you do?
Yeah, I was going to say, you asked me, did I ever think that I would be doing this and living here? And the answer is yes and no. So it's also funny too, because I remember you coming to visit in Los Angeles, and we had planned to come to Europe together with our dear friend Cora. And that was the first trip that we were supposed to make, but that's okay. So yeah, no, I always felt drawn to Europe and to being here. I had no idea why. And I was always, studying and figuring out ways to get here. And eventually I did. And doing what I do, which is internet safety and digital parenting. And you said for parents, and I'm going to say for grandparents too, because I want grandparents to be aware, you can't take a badillion pictures of your children and put them all over social media unless you're thinking about where they're going and you checked your privacy settings, all that good stuff. So I do talk to all parents, grandparents, and caregivers just about this, about responsible use of technology online, because we hear so much that's like this fear factor in the media, and I don't want people to be afraid. I want them to go forward and to grasp that opportunity.
Yes, so important. And, as a proud grandmother of 4, beautiful grandchildren, I am so guilty of this, right? I am always posting pictures of my grandkids.
I was calling you on it.
I know that comes specifically to me. And so
Did you get permission? No,
about looking at my
are your
settings.
daughters okay? If your daughters are okay, that's already one thing. If your
You
daughters
know,
are
it's
happy.
interesting because my daughter actually has certain approvals that she does
Oh,
and doesn't
there
do.
we go.
So
Yeah.
she definitely, I'll even post certain things and then she'll call me and she's like, take that down.
Okay. No, you're great. You're in good shape. You guys
Okay.
are
So,
gonna.
and I'm like, you know what? That's our agreement, is that if there's certain things that she's like, I don't want that there, or don't do this. And I'm actually really respectful about that. So I do have that conversation. So that is
Yay.
good.
Okay.
Yes.
We've done it.
So, you know, what would you say? I mean, we're definitely going to be referring people to your resources because I think there is a lot of um, misleading information, and there's also a lot of lack of information, right? Of, you know, not knowing what to believe and how to act and move forward in the digital world. What would you give as kind of an advice, maybe a first step of something that for parents and grandparents to consider in the digital world that maybe they hadn't considered before?
Yeah, I think actually two things come to mind so quickly, and that is communication and critical thinking. And I think it's probably because you mentioned the fact that there's so much misinformation out there, and there's so much, we hear all of these horrible, scandalous stories, and yet we don't always see all of the good that kids are doing online and some of the fantastic things that are happening. So I just say, critical thinking, your house, your rules. So decide what works for your family, what works best for you. And when I say communication, I mean, always keep those conversations going like you do with your daughter, checking to make sure, and that I'm sure she's doing with the kids as well, to find out, what are they doing online? Where are they going online? When are they going online? All of those kinds of things. Who are they talking to online and chatting with? I mean, there is no way that we are going to be able to put our children in a little technical bubble and protect them as they're out on the digital highway. But
Right.
if you use some of that same common sense, critical thinking, and confident parenting that we already have as we're trying to protect our children and raise healthy, resilient little beings, if you bring that online, you're already just ahead of the game.
Right. Absolutely. You know, and I think it's so important to have those conversations. 'Cause I was actually asking my daughter about that in terms of like, you know, are people trying to reach out to your kids while they're playing games and things? And she said that, yeah, that with my grandson, that that somebody would say like, you know, hey, where do you live? And ask certain questions. And he would be like, dude, I'm just playing a game. You don't need to know anything about me.
Perfect. Yeah,
So,
exactly. But this is it.
right.
It's giving our kids these proactive strategies beforehand. And it's the same thing that our parents did for us when we would go to the park, telling us, don't talk to strangers, don't look there, the safe way to get
Right.
home, things like that.
Yeah, right. You know, I think about that when we would ride our bike over to like, you know, 52nd to 7-Eleven or to clean a park. I'm like, I can't even
Oh,
imagine. Like
yeah.
my daughter would never let her kids go all day and be in the canyon and do some of the things that we did, you know?
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought about clean up park in ages. Yeah, we would just go and hang out and be
Yeah.
absolutely fine, riding bikes, popping wheelies. That's just crazy. Yeah, but those
Right.
those were the
Or
days.
getting on the bus and going to the beach down in Mission Beach for like, it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's wild.
yeah.
So, we got away with a lot when we were younger.
It was a different time,
A
different
different
time.
time. That's right. That's right. So I'd love to talk more about how, you know, a lot of people will just live by default. Like they'll just kind of let things happen. And I know that, you know, you are a critical thinker. You're someone that is a planner. And I really want to look at how you consciously create your life. Like what are some of the tools and books and routines that you have? Because, you know, we always know that success leaves clues and there's ways in how we make choices. And I'd love to hear some of yours.
Yeah, well, actually, I love that expression, success leaves clues, because it really, really does. And so I never feel like I'm out here trailblazing because, I'm looking at other women who, are just inspiring role models and, trying to figure it out as I go. One of the things that I really I try to do, don't always do it, but I try to not be so hard on myself. Meaning that, I may try one thing, I may go one way, and it's absolutely fine to step back, to reflect, to tweak it a little bit. You have to. This is life, it's flexible. But I think that in my particular case, I was always a fan of lists. So I love to make lists. Even sitting here, here's another list right there. I mean, I just love having lists for everything. I've got them on my smartphone. I've got them on my iPad.
Maybe we had a teacher that had us do that, because I love lists too. I'm not sure what teacher that is.
Sister Rita. It was Sister Rita.
Okay,
I'm
Sister
sure.
Rita. All right.
But I just, I love that idea and that sense of accomplishment. And I think that sometimes if you keep the main thing, and you write down just one or two priorities that you're going to get through, and you get them done. But I think more specifically, you asked me, what types of things and strategies, and honestly, I read so many different things, but that people refer to me, they tell me, oh, this is a great entrepreneurial story, or, what have you. And, whatever it is, I'll take it and see what I can learn from it. And, what resonates for me at that time, and put it away. Sometimes I come back to them, sometimes I don't, but I do just keep trying to move forward.
Yeah. You've shared with me about remembering who you are and what you're passionate about. How does that support you, and what is it that keeps you in your zone of genius and moving forward with those passions?
Well, I think that that's really key. We just remembering who you are. What's your purpose? What is it that you do? What special gifts do you have that you can bring? And whatever it is that you want to do, whether you want to be, the best hairdresser, whether you want to be the best lawyer, the best entrepreneur, whatever that is, stay true to who you are and keep going towards that goal. For me, my passion has just, it's grown. Originally it was law, and then I started adding in technology, and then it was children's rights, and now it's an intersection of all three. And that's fine. I've just gone along with that evolution. But I do think it's really, really important to stand true to yourself, and to know, sometimes I think that, and I want to say it as women, that sometimes, we have that intuition, and we can feel when something is right, or perhaps not as, the path to go. And I think we have to trust that and really, follow our passion and stay true to ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of that, there's so much like fear that's out there. There's, uncertainty, and to be able to move through uncertain times and to, stand in your power. I like to say, to move through fear and to be more fierce, like to show up just more powerfully in the world. And, I remember you from even at the age of 5, that you were just a confident kid. Like you just like, and I don't know what the experience was for you, but it's like there was no unmistaking that you were somebody that stood out in the crowd, that you really stood up for yourself. You like always were a very eloquent speaker. You had the best vocabulary in any of our classes. And it's amazing how you can just see almost that star quality in kids that just have that it. And I'm just curious for you, that did you feel that yourself growing up? Was that something you cultivated? What maybe influence you had with your parents? What would you say that came from for you, and how that helped you evolve into who you are?
Yeah, I think that's a trickier question, I would think, because you remember my mother, and my mother was just a little ball of energy herself, and and she was always pushing me to go forward and to do more. And so, in some ways, I was resentful, but in other ways, I just loved it. And so, to give you an example, I was always the youngest in the class,
Yes.
and so, to finish high school at 16. When I sit there and look now, I think, gosh, I really could have, been held back a year. So that way I could have had more time to mature, because then I just wished through school, and I finished UCLA at 20, and then went through law school and finished law school at, I think I was 23, 24. I couldn't even drive a car, Diane. You had to be 25 to rent a car in San Francisco to go to court, and I could not even rent a car. And I think that all of that sort of, pushing for overachieving, that there's, that sometimes it can push you to a good place, And it can also push you to a place where you're uncomfortable. And as you said about the fear and about using that and then becoming fierce, I think that's really, really necessary. And women, I think they should draw on whatever, and women and men, draw on whatever it is that empowers you to keep moving. Because the moment that we let that fear paralyze us, I think that's when we're in trouble. Even for me coming here, I remember leaving my law firm and moving to Paris. And I was only supposed to come for 1 year to do an MBA program. And that's what I told everybody. And I was hoping that I'd be able to stay longer. And, I think even today, my father is still waiting for me to come back home. And it's been 26 years, But for me, the idea was that when I came, of course I was afraid. I didn't speak French. I didn't know French law. I mean, come on, how corny, how crazy is that, to come over to a country where you don't speak the language? And I had bits and pieces of French, but still. And I just just really told myself that even if I failed, I could always go back home. I could always pick up something else. And that really, I would have the biggest regret if I never did it. And so here I am, 26 years later, and absolutely no regrets, except why didn't I come earlier? No, that's not true. I came at the exact right time when I was supposed to. And I really do believe that. I do believe that everything happens when it's supposed to, and that we have the setbacks that we do because they make us stronger. Like I said, it's faith, the faith in whatever people want to believe that pushes you forward.
Yes, yes. Well, and I absolutely am a believer as well in terms of your experience that you have, that they're that foundation that you draw from. I mean, that's where you build that grit and that resilience, and, you're able to get through things. And so, what's one of the things I love sharing with our audience is, what are some of those disempowering times? Like, what were those tough things, and how did you move through that and then become more empowered because of it?
Ooh, I can't think of one. I know I spoke to you earlier and I mentioned something. What did I tell you? I'm going to have to
You were
think.
talking, the part of what was hard was the disheartening part of with governments with the digital parenting and stuff, so that they're not always on board with some of these things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're not always thinking of keeping children safe because they're profit based, and that can be really a frustrating thing, because you're kind of in a interesting place, because you're trying to protect the children and have awarenesses, but then you're also speaking to entities that don't necessarily see the ROI in that.
Exactly. So I was going to say that for me, there's two parts, because I initially spoke to you and I was thinking really about like my business and what I do. But I think sometimes disempowering, something that can be disempowering is just this lack of confidence, that sometimes you can like just listen to the negative Nellies and kind of believe it. And I think that's something that's really important, and it's something, it doesn't happen to me frequently, but sometimes I think that I think it's important to share the real deal. And it's that sometimes I can sit there and say, oh gosh, wow, what am I doing? Is this right? And I think that can disempower you when you're just, so set, and you're just really going forward, and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, what you chose to do, what your passion, what life set you out to do. And I think that sometimes things can come and try to push you off track. But with respect to that, as far as my actual work, yes, I found it to be very disempowering to be here in Europe, to think, all these European governments, and to go to these, meetings and conferences, and to be sitting there with all these gorgeous flags, and you're thinking such unity, and you get there and you hear, from the government speakers, whether they're national or international, or you hear from academics, you hear from schools, you even hear from industry. Sometimes you would even hear from the children themselves, but there was no one really there talking about parents and how to bring parents into this conversation. And for me, I was thinking, the very first educators are parents. They're the very first ones who are there with the children. And I'm like, if we are not creating awareness and educating parents on what are the potential repercussions in this digital age, then we have done them a disservice. So for me, that is something that was a little disempowering. I'm still working on it. Sometimes I still go into a meeting and it's like that.
Right, right. Well, and then getting through that to the other side, as far as I know, you've spoken to me about, the empowerment of really supporting parents from a place where, because of so many things that are happening out there, parents can feel guilty that they're not doing enough, or they can feel, shameful, or just all of the the angst that can come from parenting. How is it that you're helping parents realize that they are enough and that what they're doing is the right step and getting the right resources? How are you supporting parents who are just feeling like it's just never enough?
Yeah, and no, 100%. And that is something that I really take to heart. And so I speak as much as possible. Well, before coronavirus, of course, I was out. I was in Thailand in February. I was in Italy. I was in Spain. Just all around Europe. Actually, what am I talking about? I was even in Seychelles and Mauritius. In Mauritius, I was training police officers on internet safety. It was very cool. When people were asking me to come and to speak, and it was always the same thing. Whenever I'd get into a room, I would always talk, from my heart to theirs, just really trying to get to the parents and, why did you have these children? And now that you're here, you're their guardian. So let's be their digital guardian as well. And what can you do? And I think that a lot of parents are, rightly so, they're freaking out because they're, watching too many things in media, they're reading things, and, they're just not taking a breath and seeing what are some of the benefits when their children are online, when they're learning, when they're playing a game, or when they're connecting on social media. And of course, looking at the risk, obviously, but minimizing those things. So for me, I just think it is so important to just keep boosting parents, to let them know that they have what it takes. I always say, don't panic, parent. It's because that's the first thing that people want to do is they want to panic. I'm like, no, don't panic, don't parent. Don't panic, parent. And the second thing that I always tell parents is to take the tech out. And I find that really soothes parents when you tell them to take the tech out, because we're so used to feeling not so competent with this digital age, being tech savvy parents. And so if a parent comes to me and they want to talk about cyberbullying, and I say, okay, let's take the tech out. So if this were schoolyard bullying, what would you do? And they have generally the same reflex. They say, oh, I'm going to try to talk to my child to find out what happened, to reassure them. And so I think that, that when we rely on our parenting instincts, that we can accomplish a lot. The other day, someone had asked me about pornography and online pornography, and what to do if they catch their child online, watching pornography. And I just looked at them and I said, take the tech out. So what does that mean? Take the tech out. Let's go back to, when we were younger, and if somebody had a Hustler magazine or Playboy, Playgirl, what would our parents have done to us if they had seen that? Of course, they would have gone ballistic, but we would have had the proper consequences for that. And it's the same sort of thing. The only difference is that technology is everywhere and it's 24/7, and parents need to just up their game and to realize that they've got it. Just take a deep breath and realize that they've got it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that take the tech out, because I think it feels like you're dealing with a different issue with the child when you bring in the technology. But when you take that part out, you're still, having conversations with your child. You're trying to build their critical thinking, so that, because I think when a lot of that stuff happens, they're just not thinking, right? They maybe clicked on something and then all of a sudden things are popping up, and then you go down a rabbit hole. I mean, how many times have we all gotten online and it's like, how did I get here? Right. And so the same
Yeah,
things are happening
exactly.
with the children. And so you really want to look at what kind of environment are you creating in your home? What kind of environment are you creating online? Are they compatible? What does that actually look like? So I think that's such a helpful tool for parents, not only the, don't panic parent, right? And taking the tech out of the conversation. So I think those are such
Yeah.
helpful tools for people to have, which reminds me, speaking of environments, one of the things I love to ask my guests is that we have completely different experiences in our office versus our bedroom versus our kitchen. What is your favorite room in your home and why?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. My favorite room. You know what? I would have to say it's the game room. And the game room is, I'm in Paris, I'm in a Parisian apartment. So it's not like the huge houses that we have in the United States, but still it's a Paris apartment. And we have one room, I guess you would call it a family room in the United States, where, we have the big pillows and the big sofas and a big television and all the kids' toys and things. And so we call it the game room. And one of the things that I just enjoy so much in that room, and that I'll do after I get off this call, is just going in there and hanging out with my boys and watching a movie. Sometimes I'll have a glass of wine, sometimes I won't, and it's just a moment to recharge, just to be with them. It's my favorite room. I don't get in there enough, unfortunately.
Mm. You know what? I love that, because that just took me back to a memory of the family room, both in your home and in my home, and how we would have slumber parties. And I don't think anyone does this anymore, but we had 33 girls in one of our classes,
Oh my
and both
gosh,
of our
yeah.
parents were okay with us inviting all of them to stay at our homes, and the sleeping bags and everybody sleeping over. And you just don't hear about that anymore. And
That
thank
is
God that
so
we were
true.
in safe families where that was a safe experience, and that it was great. And the worst trouble was toilet papering in the neighborhood, and you know, and I think we'll blame Cora for that one. So
Yeah, yeah, I think it's Cora. It was Cora or Jenny, I'm sure.
one
It
of
wasn't
those two
me.
girls, right? But that we got to have those experiences together, and the environments that our families created in our homes, and those experiences are things that I take with me today. And I think that is those kind of experiences that we had really is a foundation for me to stay connected to childhood friends, to really be
Yeah.
interested in what everyone's up to, and really continue to have that connection. So I love you. I adore you. And I'm just so glad that we are still friends after all these decades.
I know, it's crazy. We're not going to say how many, are we?
Well, we were just saying, with you being it's been 31 years just since I visited you in Paris. So let's just
Oh,
say there's that, right? So
yeah.
I would
Okay,
just
we'll
say
just leave
we're
it at
rocking the fifth
that.
decade. Let's just say we're rocking the fifth decade.
Yeah, we are rocking
So
it.
I think
That
we
we
can
are for
proudly
sure.
say that we are in that place. So I'm
Oh
actually
my
proud
gosh,
of our age.
yeah. I think
So
we should be, and I think that we should just put it out there so we can be role models for
that's
all of
right.
the women behind us, because you really can. They can do so much, and I think that childhood friends and community, whether it's a childhood friend or just a community of women, of friends, of people who've got your back and who can support you.
Yes.
I think it's really important.
Definitely. Well, along those lines, what is the one thing that you want people to remember you by?
The one thing that I want them to remember me by, um, my goodness, I would say just my passion and my commitment to families. I think that is really, really important. I think that no matter how the family is composed, no matter what country we're living in, no matter how much tech or how little tech, I just want people to remember how important families are, and that even with all of this digital that comes in, I mean, that's still the most important part, is the families.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important in these times where, people are feeling uncertain, and, when they scroll, you and I had talked about, there's so much, negative media out there, that we really want to be a stand for positivity. And particularly, I love talking to positive disruptors like you,
Yes.
that are really
Yeah.
making a difference in the world. And so, as we kind of wrap up our time here, one, I know that people are wanting to stay in contact with you, so I'd love for you to share how they can do that, and we will definitely put your links in the show notes. But how is it that you feel you are being a positive disruptor in the world?
I think the fact that I am out there going against the grain, and the grain is, everybody saying, oh, parents, do this, do that, keep all the tech down, shut it down. And it's like, no, no, no. I'm saying, parents, think for yourselves, and be confident parents. Keep talking with your children, go for it. Do the research and have fun. There are so many things that are out there, and and I will call it out in some of the tech companies when I think and see that there are different abuses, because as I said earlier, that they are profit maximizers. All of these wonderful apps and things that we receive them for free. And if they're free, there is a reason. So I just want parents to think about these things, and that doesn't mean not to use it. It just means, use it with all the intelligence that you have. So yeah, no, I just want to keep on doing what I'm doing. I just want to bring digital families to the forefront, so they can, ask for their own rights and responsibilities, so they can be digital guardians themselves, and not necessarily listen to what everybody else is telling them that they have to do.
Definitely. And I'd love for you to share your parenting group, which is
Yeah.
such a fantastic resource for parents to ask some of these questions that come up, and to be able to look at some of the resources that you have. And it's just an amazing service that you offer parents. So I'd love you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So the digital parenting community on Facebook is a free private group, and we have parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, child online protection experts, cybersecurity specialists, gaming addiction experts. We do really do. We have all of that. Child psychologists, if I didn't already say, school counselors, and basically the whole idea is that we are a community to support. So you may have heard the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, we say it takes a digital parenting community to raise a digital citizen. And so, we're just out there supporting. If somebody wants to know what's a great app for 4-year-olds, or, what should I do if my 16-year-old seems to be, spending too much time on their phone, we're just offering suggestions and best practices, things that worked in our homes and in our families. And, then we say, go with it. There's no parent shaming. Everybody has to do what's right for them.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate your wisdom, and it's been so fun going down memory lane as well. And just getting to connect with you is just so fun. I'm probably due to go to Paris as soon as things open up here soon to make that
I will be
happen.
waiting for you for sure. And the next time I come your way, I think we need to hop on some bikes and go to that McDonald's on University Avenue.
I'm sure there's like a smoothie shop or something. We can do better now, right? We're evolved.
Yeah. No. I want to go back to the old times.
You're so funny. I love it. Well, such a pleasure. And so thank you for being on the show and sharing your wisdom and being here. It's been so wonderful.
Anytime. I think it's fabulous what you're doing, and that you're reaching all of these women and just uplifting them and letting them realize that they can attain it. They can get there. We can all live this. It's just time to do it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you. And I just want to thank our listeners as well, because we can't do it without you. You are a big integral part of the community. You are how we get positive messages out in the world, is by sharing it. Please, watch, more of the episodes and subscribe, put your rating and review. I mean, all of those things reach out to a greater number of people, and they can hear these messages. I mean, just think, for those of you who are hearing this message today, what parents need to hear this. How is it they can be uplifted and have the resources that they may not know about? So we so appreciate you getting it out in the world. If you've got direct questions for myself or Elizabeth, whatever platform that you're on, please put in the comments and tag us, and we're happy to answer any questions there as well. And then make sure you also go over to the digital parenting to have ongoing support from Elizabeth, as well as any support that I can give you with the links that we have in our show notes as well. So until we connect again, live your spotlight. Bye for now.